Would you please come here, sir?
Yeah, okay.
His name, Bill Mozer?
That's correct.
Bill Mozer, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah, thank you for applauding. It stirs up the ventilation.
So, what I'm going to do, instead of doing my speech here, is I'm going to talk to John Carpenter and ask him about his biography. And one thing I do know is that at the early age of, I think, 2 years old, John was given by his parents the Great Train Robbery. And he watched it probably 10,000 times and knows every single frame of that movie and everyone who was involved in it. But John, as I understand, is the most resourceful guy when it comes to movie history. And so tell us, John, what was your first, what was actually the first movie that you watched as a child?
Well, the first film that I watched, I didn't even know what it was. I was at my grandmother's house. I was maybe 6 years old, and I was told, don't touch the television set. So what did I do? I touched the television set, right? And flicking the channels, which I knew how to do at that age, I came across what I later was finding out was a silent film. It was flickery, it was fast, it was very, very, very violent. It turned out, which I found out later on in my years of collecting and being a film historian, that the film was Gentlemen of Nerve, 1914, and what got me about it was there was close-ups of what turned out to be Charlie Chaplin and Mabel Normand. What got me, believe it or not, about this was the fact that due to these shots being so close in a 1914 film, I was able to see how horrible their teeth were. And that's, believe it or not, what got me into really the mystery of these old films, which were esoteric, which were creaky, but I wanted to learn, I look at this as archaeology, to look deeper into what was, to learn what was, to see how this became our greatest industry. Bill?
Then you became an adult, or a semi-adult.
That usually happens.
That's even questionable, right? As I said before, you can be young once and immature for the rest of your life.
And I'm making a living at it.
So now you're a teenager and you've collected films. You have how many films in your home?
Now I have 400,000. On reels, ladies and gentlemen. The basement is packed. My mother wants me out with every new package that comes at the door by the mailman. And I am studying, researching, going deeper into it. But what I do, Bill, now is I make these films that are unavailable to be seen, like I'm doing here at Levittown Library. I work with a DVD company called Alpha Video, and these films that you cannot find anywhere, that no one even heard of for the most part, and are out of copyright, see Jackie? And I sell them to, I lease them out, my prints, since my prints pretty much are the only prints, and then they transfer them to DVD and they sell them internationally. And it's doing great, because the thing is, people need to see, and they're fascinated, just like I was as a child, at the art and the creativity and the genius of these people. Sometimes you find films that are now considered politically incorrect. That's always going to be the case, because remember, you're watching a film that's maybe 80 to 100 years old sometimes, and things are different. But like I always tell all my audiences, you watch these films with the mindset of then. You can't judge them how you see them now with today's mindset. It's impossible, because then you really enjoy the film as it was, without judging it and just being condemning of it. Bill?
Your collection of films.
Yes.
I'm speechless in terms of the quantity of films you have. But they're fragile. They're physically fragile. And you trust the transfer companies to?
No, I'm there.
Oh, you're
I
there,
don't
okay.
let them out of my hand. I am a very untrusting collector. I keep them very much in eyesight at all times because A, I'm not going to allow, I loaned a print once out of the kindness of my heart to another bigger than me film historian who was going to be, films were printed on nitrate film stock. Nitrate film stock, highly flammable. And I had that situation in my head. You see, film collecting, Bill, it's not a mamby-pamby femboy hobby because you risk your life if you're dealing with old film. Because I found a nitrate 35 millimeter film print from 1930 in someone's garbage when I worked at the Astoria Motion Picture Studios, and I brought that home. And I was in high school. I was going into college, and I said, "Wow! Now I'm really a film collector. I've got a nitrate." Well, the nitrate blew up. It blew out the bathroom wall, set the bathroom on fire, and I had to stay there because I didn't want the firemen to be coming in with their axes, bashing the entire house up. But these films are very flammable and for the most part very fragile. This film collector I was speaking of, David Shepard, he wrecked a print and then just said, "Oh, I'm sorry." And that's why, Bill, I do not let my films out of my hands anymore. Because these films, for the most part, are the only ones out there. And that's really why I've become so popular in film collecting circles, Bill. Because I have things no one else has. Not that I'm bragging, but I'm just being truthful. The film now, see, I've studied these films. These films are not just entertainment. And that's why I want you all to see them and look at them the same way. They're not just entertainment, they're education, but they're also art, and you're gonna see the art. You're gonna feel the art. Something that we don't see today, we see then. And that's why these films should not be condemned as being old. Bill, we can't talk much longer because these people are salivating.
I'm not saying too much. You're doing the talking.
That's usually the case.
That's usually the case. Thank you, Ira.
Now,
Yes.
when these films are transferred into the
Yes.
digital world, are they enhanced or does that compromise the artistic integrity of the film?
It would cost way more. Financially, it would really break me to go change them physically. But to show them, like for instance, I made before the film, the motion picture, The Artists came out, that won all the Academy Awards of silent film. Back in 1987, I raised the money. I wrote, produced, directed, and starred in a silent film of my own that was shown theatrically, won awards, and is now on DVD being shown internationally and doing incredibly well. The DVD has sold over 5,000 copies so far.
And it's a good film.
I'm not going to be here anymore because I don't need to. No, I don't. I need to keep these films alive for all of you, you know? Thank you, Ira. Thank you for saying the film.
It was a beautiful
Thank you.
film, yeah.
And that film, I forgot why I was mentioning it now.
It's called, the film.
It's called Late to Lunch. It is sold on Alpha Video at www.oldies.com, and it was inspired by Charlie Chase, Charlie Chaplin, people of that ilk. I'm sorry to interrupt.
Well, then you do this, John.
Oh,
You're a director.
All right, I'm so
Wrap it up.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, I can't begin to tell you how fortunate that John is to have aligned himself here with the Levittown Library because it's a beautiful venue here. I was here last week for a presentation I had in one of the meeting rooms, and impressive. I mean, the magnitude of this library and the resources are just extraordinary. And the latest resource is Mr. John Carpenter.
Thank you. Bill, thank you so much. God bless you. Thank you.